Alright friends, so the hunt content's been a little slow going here, kind of right at the beginning start of what many refer to as the October lull. Acorns are falling like mad, literally walking through the woods it's like gravel, so deer don't really have to move much. And I thought I would take this time in the absence of some deer content and on a very windy, cold Missouri morning to bring you an honest review of the Annihilator Broadheads. I picked these broadheads up about a year and a half ago, hunted with them all last year, but never really had a deer that I was willing to take a shot at close enough. Did end up shooting at a turkey at 30 yards and missed last year. Broadhead stuck in the ground, went through some gravel, gristle, just junk on the forest floor. And this is not that broadhead. That broadhead is actually in the garage, but retained a pretty good edge and just sharpened it up this year. So that's my only experience with them until this year. This year, however, though, I've been able to harvest two adult does with these broadheads. I'll tell you about the first one. Actually, that's this broadhead. These Annihilator Broadheads, they're 1 1/8 inch cutting diameter. They're a solid ferrule. They're made of some special steel. I don't know the composition of them, but they retail for around $60, $59.99 for a pack of 3, and unfortunately you end up paying around $11, $12 shipping. So by the time you factor tax into these suckers, you're about $75 for a pack of 3. I know that there are a lot of more well-known brands that you can buy, for instance, Magnus Stinger broadheads, G5 Montex, you can buy for almost half the cost and may perform just as well. I did have some Magnus Stingers and unfortunately could not get them to group out of my bow. So I went back to these because I had them laying around, and they fly within 2 inches of a field point out of my bow. I'm shooting around 250 FPS. I've got a gold tip, Hunter 300. I did have Hunter XT 300 that I tested these on as well. So the process for getting these to group out of my bow, I have a dozen arrows and I took the 6 best. There was only, I'd say out of that dozen arrows, there was 2 or 3 that just would not fly within 2 inches, wouldn't group, just were way outliers. I do not index these broadheads, so I don't line up the blades with the vanes. I do keep the same broadhead with the same arrow until it goes bad or the arrow does something weird or whatever, because I know that's how it's going to fly. And so of the 6 arrows I carry in my quiver, all 6 can group within 2 to 3 inches at around 40 yards. So I'm pretty impressed with their ability to group. They have a very small, low-profile design, and because of that, I was a bit concerned about the blood trails on these on these broadheads, and that did create some complication, very minor complication, on the first deer that I shot, and that is where I start with this specific broadhead. At 30 yards, I had a doe come in and elected to take a shot. Basically, the broadhead went exactly where I was aiming. I blew through both shoulders, hit both lungs, and almost cut the heart in half. This arrow specifically buried into the ground about 2 inches up the arrow shaft, and I'll bring the broadhead up, but I honestly would not be afraid. Now, I will sharpen this broadhead, but I would not be afraid, even prior to sharpening this broadhead, to shoot this broadhead at another deer. So not only did it blow through both shoulders, all the vital organs, all that kind of junk, and then bury into the ground. The ground that it did bury into was just soft dirt, so it wasn't like full of rocks or anything like that, twigs. So it was kind of forgiving on the Broadhead, I will say. But there's no, I mean, the edge retention is amazing. There's no real nicks, dents, and I'd be afraid to run my finger across it because it's still pretty sharp. So all in all, very impressed. That deer ran 65 yards, approximately 65 yards. She bounded off initially 20 yards and just stood there until she did her final death run and crashed. Very impressed with the performance. I did not have much of a blood trail though, so I was a bit concerned that I wasn't going to have a blood trail with the second deer I shot. But again, if they fall within 65 yards of where I'm shooting them, then quite frankly, I should be able to find them. The interesting thing about these Broadheads is with the ferrule design, it is a solid ferrule. With the ferrule design, apparently they report that it, or they advertise that it creates a vacuum which pulls tissue in to the Broadhead and provides cutting power as it pulls that tissue in and creates a wound channel. I will tell you on that deer, when we deboned her and things finished her, there was a very, and when I gutted her, there was a very definite wound channel that appeared to be larger than the Broadhead. So maybe it does create some sort of vacuum and pull tissue in to provide a better cut. So I'm going to bring this Broadhead up close to show you. Can you see it? Does it look pretty good? Asking the camera woman, my wife, if it looks pretty good. So edge retention is very good. Let's move on to the next Broadhead. This one told a little bit different of a tale, and honestly, this Broadhead is really what sold me on these Annihilator Broadheads. In full transparency, I have 6 of these. I'm resharpening them and using them, but I did buy some G5 Montex just because I wanted to test those out, and in case any of these got damaged, I was going to replace them with the G5 Montec because it's significantly cheaper to shoot a G5 Montec than it is the Annihilator. But ultimately, after testing these, at least on the 2 deer that I've shot, the price might be really worth it, frankly. Because in this Broadhead's case, this Broadhead went, shot a doe at 20 yards. This is a 500, I forgot to mention that, this is a 530 grain arrow. And I have 225 grains up top. So this is a 125 grain Broadhead. They do offer 100 grain, I just wanted extra weight up front. And so I shot this deer, this adult doe, at 20 yards. Basically entered just behind and above the shoulder. And I was at a pretty steep angle to the deer, and it exited out the, it hit a rib on the offside, exited out the back half of the deer behind the rib cage and still buried into the ground about 4 inches. And so that's a testament to the setup, but that's also a testament to the Broadhead. I square plucked that rib on the offside, and yes, it did deflect. Yes, it didn't blow through the rib. But on this specific deer, she ran about another 20 yards, bounded off, and made it about an additional 60, 70 yards during her death run. But this Broadhead created a much better blood trail than that Broadhead did, the other one. And so while I don't necessarily appreciate the inconsistencies of the blood trail, I can tell you that in both cases, the wound channel for these Broadheads was larger than the Broadhead design, and so I do think that vacuum design that they created plays some sort of a role in cutting more tissue in this Broadhead acting bigger than what it is. So all in all, it's about 75 bucks, maybe a little bit cheaper if you buy a pack of 6. I think initially I did buy a pack of 6 and it was still only about $11 or $12 shipping, but if you just need 3, it's 75 bucks roundabouts for a set of 3 of these. I definitely appreciate them. I'm going to be shooting them for a while. They group pretty close to a field point. They're not exact to a field point, and with wind they do deflect a little bit. Ultimately, that's just something that it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make with the fixed blade design, the performance I've gotten out of these, and the fact that both deer I shot with these ran less than 100 yards. Frankly, it's all about accuracy when it comes to archery hunting, and these provide that accuracy, and they're absolutely lethal. So if you get a chance to go check out the Annihilator Broadheads, go check them out. They're not cheap, but you know, ultimately, you don't want to waste your time in the woods. You know, you don't want to get out there, spend 7-8 hours sitting in the seat, cold, hungry, tired, only to have the broadhead not perform. And frankly, I've got trust in these broadheads to perform it each and every time. At least so far, I've got 3 instances where I've let one go, and all 3 broadheads are still with me. Going to sharpen them up and let them go, but again, I wouldn't hesitate either one of these broadheads that I've shot through deer to sharpen them up, and or I wouldn't even hesitate to shoot them at a deer right now. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more content. All right, so I know I basically concluded that last video with the Annihilator Broadheads, but I will insert here at the end of this video some pictures and give you a little bit more close-up of the actual broadheads to detail their edge retention and the design and all that stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more content.